There we go. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out my setup over here. Welcome to the Spirituality with Ashley podcast, the podcast where we explore the depths of our spiritual journeys and uncover the wisdom of the soul. I'm your host, Ashley, and I am absolutely thrilled to be on this journey with you. New episodes come out every Monday. We talk about everything from healing modalities and spiritual readings to personal growth and metaphysics, all with the goal of understanding ourselves on a deeper level, creating a deeper connection with our intuition, and living our best lives. You can expect insightful conversations with special guests, practical tips for spiritual development, and moments of inspiration to fuel your journey. Whether you're a seasoned truth seeker or just beginning to explore your spirituality, this podcast is for you. Don't forget to connect with me on social media to stay updated on new episodes and join the conversation. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Spirituality with Ashley. Now, let's get this conversation started. Today's episode is all about taking a break from your spiritual practice. When it's okay, why it's okay, signs and symptoms that it might be time to either take a break from your spiritual practice or get back to it, or maybe explore new avenues and what to do in the meantime. So let's go ahead and jump right in. For everybody who is watching this podcast, hello, how are you? We have my friends Sphinx, my golden pothos, and Arthur over here joining me for another episode. And again, you can watch this on YouTube and you can also watch it on Spotify if you just want to see me talking. You're also welcome to listen to it. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump in. I want to get better about my introductions and not have them be like 10 minutes long every time. So I want to first talk about the role of consistency in spiritual practice. There is a prevailing belief that consistency is absolutely essential for spiritual progress. And that, I mean, while there's value in consistency, it's not like the end all be all. You don't have to consistently do the same thing every single day, or you're just like you've broken the spiritual practice. That's not really how it works. There are a lot of spiritual traditions that emphasize the importance of consistency in practice. And they suggest that regular engagement fosters discipline and it deepens your understanding and it strengthens your spiritual connection. And that's absolutely true. Consistency is awesome. Benefits of regular spiritual practices and having that consistency is that you will deepen your connection. You will cultivate mindness, and it makes it easier and more feasible to nurture and create more inner peace. However, while consistency in spiritual practice is beneficial and it can foster discipline and deepening of understanding, it's not the only factor in spiritual growth, which I think is so important to mention. I know a lot of us have spiritual practices. We're very interested in spirituality, and then we feel the burnout. We feel not excited about it anymore, and we're like, we want to take a break from it, but then we like feel guilty from taking a break from our spiritual practice, which is counter, like it doesn't make sense because if you're taking a break from it, you're supposed to enjoy, um kind of like sink into the rest and take that time for yourself. But instead, we can find ourselves spending a lot of energy feeling guilty or pressured to continue with our spiritual practice because we know it needs to be consistent and that in order to have spiritual growth, we need to consistently have spiritual practices and connect and do all the things. But sometimes life happens and we are always changing. And so I think that it's important to recognize that while the consistency of a spiritual practice is very helpful, it's also really helpful to pay attention to how you're feeling about it. And if you're just not feeling great about it anymore, then you don't have to be consistent with that spiritual practice. So, spiritual growth is multifaceted, and it's not just influenced by how consistent you are with your spiritual practice. It's influenced by a lot of factors. So, we're going to get into a few of those, three of them to be specific. We're going to talk about self-awareness, introspection, and life experiences. So part of spirituality and spiritual growth is self-awareness. On our spiritual journeys, we are cultivating more self-awareness. And we can also do this in our everyday lives. Like that's just a part of personal development, is becoming more self-aware. And when your self-awareness is essentially the ability to observe and understand your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors without judging them, just being able to recognize when it's happening. So an example of self-awareness would be if you're getting into a heated discussion or an argument with somebody, being able to recognize when you're feeling very emotional and you want to come from this place of like defensiveness and defending yourself rather than holding this perspective of, I want to listen to what this person is saying, and then I want to compassionately respond rather than emotionally react. That's an example of cultivating self-awareness and putting it into practice. Self-awareness also allows you to recognize patterns, triggers, and limiting beliefs that may be hindering your spiritual evolution. And not just your spiritual evolution. Limiting beliefs and patterns and triggers can hinder your personal development. They can hinder your professional development. They can hinder relationships from being healthy and thriving. So self-awareness really impacts more than just your spiritual journey. We are talking about spiritual growth, and we're talking about it in the context of spiritual growth, but just in case you're not super, super into spirituality, because I know there are some people who listen to this podcast who are interested, but like you're not talking about your spiritual journey and your spiritual path all the time. So spiritual journey is synonymous with life, with your life path, with just you being a human. Self-awareness can really be helpful. So self-awareness allows us to deepen our understanding of ourselves and our relationship to the world. And it also fosters greater compassion, authenticity, and inner peace. And I've personally noticed, I need to take a sip of water because I'm already feeling a bit parched. I've personally noticed that the more effort I've put into cultivating my self-awareness and taking that time to observe and understand my thoughts and emotions, patterns and behaviors, it is easier for me to observe them without judging them and to kind of recognize them in the moment when I'm having a conversation or I'm having an interaction or I'm scrolling on social media and I'm getting pulled in, I'm getting sucked into the black abyss, and I'm like, oh my God, I need all this stuff. Oh my God, these people's lives. And then it's getting easier as I cultivate self-awareness to be like, oh, well, I'm looking at the highlight reels of these people's lives. If I was just comparing it to my highlight reel or not comparing at all, because I'm recognizing that we're all individuals, then maybe I wouldn't feel so bad. And I probably don't need this stuff. Marketing is just amazing. Literally, they have scientists like studying human psychology and figuring out how to get us to continue scrolling and like pull us in and make us want to buy the things because I mean, that's what it's there for. So I've personally noticed a lot of improvements as I've been aware of what self-awareness is and how it can be so beneficial in life. And I can personally attest to it really helping me to have healthier, happier relationships, even when going through periods of difficulty. It's been an immensely helpful attribute to continue to hone. Is self-awareness an attribute? Yeah, I would say it's an attribute. Having self-awareness is a quality. It's definitely one that you can develop. I don't think that we're born with, a ton of self-awareness. And so I do personally think that it is wonderful to learn what self-awareness is and then try to incorporate it into your life. It can help you and it can help all the people around you too. Everybody benefits from self-awareness, I feel like. So another factor that influences spiritual growth is introspection. And introspection involves turning inward, exploring your inner landscape, your beliefs, your values, your motivations. Introspection gives us an opportunity for self-examination and inquiry. It allows us to uncover hidden truths, unresolved emotions, and uncover areas for growth. And some of the ways that we can be introspective and practice this are through journaling, through contemplation. So if you ever, sometimes I just like to grab my cup of coffee or a cup of tea and just go sit on my balcony, listen to the rain, and just think and just like let my thoughts flow, observe my thoughts, find something that I'm interested in, and then just kind of like allow myself to think about it and observe it and entertain different perspectives and kind of run through it. Like that's contemplation, deep thought. And having an inner dialogue is another way to be introspective. And by doing these things, you can, by journaling, being contemplative, having an inner dialogue, or cultivating an inner dialogue can kind of be like you talking to your higher self. It's you having a conversation with yourself, silently. I tend to do it out loud a lot, sometimes at Target, which I need to chill on because people don't need to see that conversation happening. It's journaling, contemplation, and inner dialogue. They can all help you to gain clarity. Introspection can help you to gain clarity, insight, and perspective. And it helps to facilitate personal transformation and spiritual awakening. It can help you to uncover the different layers of yourself, especially if you're on a healing journey. It just helps you. All of these things work together. Self-awareness, introspection, they all contribute to understanding yourself and being able to show up the way that you would like to show up from moment to moment. And the third part or the third factor that influences spiritual growth that I want to mention is life experiences. Life experiences are opportunities for learning. They're opportunities for growth. We are constantly presented for opportunities for growth in our lives every single day. And it's your perspective that will allow you to recognize whether something is an opportunity for growth or not. And I'm going to tell you right now, probably most things are opportunities for growth. The challenges, the wins, all of it. Every single experience that you have has the potential to deepen your understanding of yourself and your place in the world, whether it's joyful moments of connection, having an amazing friend date, meeting a new bestie, love, experiencing loving relationships, whether it's from your fur babe, whether it's from a random dog you met on the sidewalk that you suddenly had a connection with, or just some stranger on the internet that you connected with because you guys shared an opinion and it's nice to have somebody to relate to you. So life experiences can range from those joyful moments to challenging experiences, the loss of a loved one, the adversity of feeling like you're different and trying to fit in, suffering and doing without, feeling lack. All of those things are life experiences that can teach us something. And we're able to extract valuable lessons and cultivate wisdom and expand our capacity for empathy and compassion and spiritual insight. And so life experiences, introspection, self-awareness, they all are intertwined and they all work together to contribute to our spiritual and personal growth in life. And it's important to mention that embracing flexibility and allowing space for rest and reflection can really lead to profound insights and transformational shifts on our spiritual journeys. And self-awareness, introspection, and life experiences contribute to that. Now, moving on, the next part I want to talk about is the importance of self-care in spiritual growth. And I did a podcast episode. Oh man, I've been talking a lot today. I did a podcast episode about energetic self-care practices. And so if you're interested in spiritual practices or energetic self-care practices and the like diving a little deeper into the importance of self-care and how it kind of ties in with spirituality, then definitely check out that episode. I'm pretty sure it's episode 1 of the podcast. Because we're not going to dive too deep into it, but I am going to go over it. So the significance of self-care and personal well-being and spiritual development is that the more time you take for self-care, the more time you are able to create space for you to allow your thoughts to flow and just kind of be mindful and be in the moment, the more you're able to do that, it contributes to not only your personal, emotional, and physical well-being, but it also contributes to your spiritual development. Because when you create that space where you're able to kind of like tune in and listen and just observe what's happening around you, use your senses, use your extrasensory perception, use all of that and just kind of allow yourself to be and take in the information that's around you. And that can be in the form of messages from your spirit guides, that can be in the form of animals in nature, it can be just allowing inspired thoughts to come to you. But it's important to be able to rest and not be distracted and overloaded and bombarded by all of the stimulation that we're surrounded by: our phones, the computer, the TV, being outside, social media, like marketing, their life distractions, kids, pets. There are so many things that we can throw ourselves into and be distracted by. And it can be so easy to make excuses for why we don't have time to be mindful, why we don't have time to rest, why we don't have time to take care of ourselves. But that's all they are, is excuses. It's reasons for why you're not choosing to do something, because we all, or I want to say most of us, maybe not we all, but for the majority of us, we have the choice. We can choose to take a few minutes for ourselves, even if it's 5 minutes in the shower. And I say that laughing because I know some people have a lot of kids and some people have big families and some people just have a lot of stuff they're navigating and always have things going on. And finding just 5 minutes or even just 3 minutes in your day to breathe and check in with yourself and just be mindful and be in that moment. I think just taking 3 minutes a day to do that when you wake up, before you go to bed, when you're in the bathroom, I think that that can be really helpful in kind of tapping into your self-care, what you need, how you're doing, your well-being. Then that can all contribute to your spiritual development. So, neglecting self care, neglecting taking that time, creating that space for yourself can have detrimental effects on all kinds of aspects of your well being. And that includes your physical well being, your emotional well being, your spiritual health. Self care is so important. That's why we have self care Sundays or self care Saturdays or self care Tuesdays, whatever day. Or it doesn't even have to be a whole day, it can just be, a chunk of time that you take out every day, or maybe a couple hours a week spread out. Just making sure that you're taking the time for your self-care, and whatever that looks like, is so important for your health, your spiritual development, and your well-being just overall. So I feel like I'm trying to eat this microphone. I took away the spit screen, which is what we're calling it. I don't really know. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This thing right here, the spit screen. It's supposed to go over your microphone. I have yet to Google what the different parts of this are. We're gonna say it's a spit screen. If you know what it is, what it's for, what it's called, feel free to comment, send me a message. I would love it. I'm here for education, here for it. All right. Jeez. Jeez, Louise. I had to do it, guys. I had to veer off and go on a little tangent and just be random for a second. I held it together for a good amount of time, I feel like. So let's just let me be me. All right. So some of the consequences, let's get back to the topic at hand. Some of the consequences of neglecting self-care include burnout. Burnout is huge. Oh my gosh. I think I'm experiencing burnout right now, for being honest. Burnout is characterized by feelings of exhaustion, cynicism, reduced effectiveness. Oh my gosh, I feel that. Without adequate rest, relaxation, and replenishment of your energy, you may experience things like physical fatigue, emotional depletion, making it challenging to sustain your spiritual practice and engage fully in life. Have you ever heard people say, I've said this a few times, that like, I just don't feel like engaging in life. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, I push through, doing my job. I push through getting things done. I push through going to the gym. Sometimes I just feel like I'm just pushing through everything. And that's another sign of burnout. You white knuckling your way through, pushing through. That's not how it's meant to be. We're supposed to flow. We're supposed to listen to ourselves. Your body, your mind, your spirit will let you know when it needs rest. Another consequence of neglecting self-care is spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is the phenomenon where people use spiritual beliefs or practices to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues or difficult life circumstances. And I don't know about you, but I've known a few people who are super spiritual, very dedicated to their spiritual practices. They're just beautiful people, beautiful souls. And I noticed some patterns occasionally where they avoided dealing with their human existence, dealing with their current lives, current situations. They avoided self-awareness, and it was because it it was almost like it was overwhelming or too challenging to deal with their unresolved emotional issues, um, and to process difficult life circumstances. And so they used spiritual bypassing. They used their spiritual beliefs or practices to avoid doing those things. They would just be like, "Oh, well, I'm going to meditate. I'm meditating for the world to make the world happier." But if you're neglecting yourself, then your overall vibration, that energy that you're contributing, isn't as great as it could be. Always starting with yourself and then moving outward is a really great practice to make sure that you are not only taking care of yourself to be able to help other people, but you can help other people more when you're in a good spot. And that analogy about like filling your own cup, like if you're always pouring out of your cup into other people's cups, your cup is empty. If your cup is empty because you're not filling your cup with self-care and nurturing yourself and taking care of yourself, you don't have anything else to pour out of your cup into somebody else's cup. And that is when burnout happens. That's when spiritual bypassing happens. Um, when you bypass uncomfortable emotions or you avoid inner work, you may inadvertently hinder your spiritual growth and perpetuate patterns of denial or avoidance. And that leads me into my next point. Oh my God, my hair is doing all kinds of stuff. Sorry. Let's just get back on track here. Um, so talking about spiritual bypassing leads me into my next point, which is disconnection from yourself. Another consequence of neglecting self-care is disconnection from yourself. That can lead to feelings of disorientation, emptiness, or even like a loss of purpose. Without regular self-care practices that nurture and nourish your mind, body, and spirit, you may struggle to maintain a sense of inner balance. You may struggle to maintain harmony, find balance. And it can make it hard to find alignment with your authentic self and to make decisions out of alignment. Burnout, spiritual bypassing, and disconnection from yourself are all things that can happen when you're not taking time for yourself, when you're not taking time for self-care. And again, I just want to say there's no perfect amount of time for self-care. There's no rule that says you have to spend 1 day a week on self-care. There's no rule that says that you can't just spend um a, whatever insert an arbitrary amount of time. Like there are no rules about this. You create your life and you decide what is appropriate for you because we're all different. Some of us need a week of self-care a month, you know? I mean, I bet we could all probably benefit from that. I feel so when I'm taking an hour a day for self-care, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Even if I just take a few hours on the weekend and I do some face masks and I watch something that brings me joy and I go out into nature and I'm just smelling the air and listening to the sounds. Like that is so huge for me. Just being able to do that once a week, get out into nature and really be mindful. Oh my God, it's like this reset. It resets my whole energy. And I actually have a story about that where I met recently. I did that. I have been feeling so overwhelmed, burnt out. There's just my to-do list feels like it's never ending. And I'm somebody who My solar plexus is very, very overactive. I love to do. I get so much satisfaction from doing things, from going fast, from jumping in, from being busy. And the busier I get, the more stressed out I get, the more that I kind of like default to that. Like, I need to do more. I need to do more. And it gets to a point where I can't. And this has happened to me a few times where I will just push and push and push until I get sick, which is another consequence of neglecting self-care, of not listening to your body and respecting and honoring your energy and giving yourself what you need. And I had this impulse to go out into nature. I wanted to go spend some time by a lake in the woods around all these trees, and I listened to that impulse. I took a lunch break and I went out. I never ever do this. And I got out there, the wind was blowing, nobody was there. Oh, the solitude was so peaceful. And I touched some trees, connected with nature. I was listening to the birds. I was just focusing on like what I could smell. I was using my eyes and observing my surroundings and just kind of like taking note of everything I saw, like, oh, the ground, the dirt, the puddle that's really big. I bet people had fun riding through that in their Jeep. Like just being mindful in the moment. And after I touched the tree, I got a little disoriented and I started feeling kind of dizzy. And then one of my spirit guides reconnected with me. They connected with me a few years ago on my first spiritual, during my first spiritual awakening. And I had no idea what was going on. I was so new to all of the stuff that I love so much now. It was all so new that I just didn't understand what was happening. And that particular guide had contacted me, totally called me on the phone. That particular guide reached out to me clairaudiently when I was in the shower, and I could hear a distinctively different voice in my head. And I was like, what? And I shut it all down because at the time I got really scared and just there's so much crap floating around. Just really always tune into what resonates with you. And if you're coming from a place of fear, that's something to explore. And I needed to explore it, and it took me a few years. And now we're here. Anyway, reconnected with the guide. It was such a beautiful experience. And if I had not made the effort to just take that time for myself, take that hour and a half that I took to go out into nature and be mindful and just allow myself that space to find some peace in my life when I was feeling very overwhelmed, then I might not have gotten to reconnect with that guide at this point yet. I created that space and I actually asked. I was like, why is this happening now? And I asked a million questions as I do. And um they told me, they were like, well, you did this. You created the space, you asked for this, and then you followed your intuition. You listened to yourself. You paid attention to what you needed, which allowed us to connect. Like everything fell into place. So that is an example of why it can be so helpful and important to listen to what your body is telling you. Pay attention to how you're feeling, and always, always, always try to prioritize taking care of yourself. It is really crucial for us to prioritize self-care practices that support holistic well-being, holistic, all of our well-being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. We can cultivate resilience, authenticity, and a deeper sense of inner peace and fulfillment by taking that time for ourselves regularly. So, now let's talk about recognizing when a break is needed. So let's say you are being consistent with your spiritual practice and everything is going great. How do you know when it's time for you to take a break from that? So here's some signs and symptoms that may indicate that it may be time for you to take a break from your spiritual practice and not feel guilty about it, which we will also talk about. So some signs and symptoms I'm going to go over about 10 of them. So signs and symptoms that can indicate that you may need to take a break from your spiritual practice for a bit. Sign number one, persistent feelings of fatigue, exhaustion, or burnout despite engaging in spiritual practices. Sometimes I'll feel really overwhelmed and burnt out and have these persistent feelings of fatigue. And I'll be like, oh, I probably need to meditate. My boyfriend's also really good about being like, hey, have you meditated lately? Because when I meditate, it allows me to do what I did when I went out into the woods, but I can just do it anywhere. I can take 10 minutes to breathe, be very mindful of my body, do a body scan in that moment, ground myself, and I'll come out of it feeling reset and better and peaceful and less reactive and happier, and just being able to kind of like embody this loving, compassionate side of myself. And sometimes I will meditate and it doesn't help me. And I still have the persistent feelings of fatigue, exhaustion, burnout, even though I meditated or even though I engaged in a spiritual practice that once brought me peace. And so that's a sign that it might be time for me to take a break from meditating for a little while, or from that spiritual practice, whatever the spiritual practice is that I'm not getting the peace from that I once did. Another sign and symptom is difficulty maintaining focus or concentration during meditation, prayer, or other spiritual activities. That's another sign. If I am trying to meditate and I just cannot get into the flow, that lets me know that like I've got a lot, and it's a lot. I can get very overwhelmed. I put a lot on myself. I put a lot on my plate often. And that's something I recognize about myself, and I am working on that. And so when I notice that it's really hard for me to focus or concentrate during meditation, that's a sign to me that, okay, I need more rest. I need to take a break. I need to not pressure myself into doing this. If you're not feeling inner peace, if you're not feeling rejuvenated, if you're not feeling good about your spiritual practice and you're having a difficult time maintaining your focus or concentration during it, whereas you were able to do that previously, that is definitely a sign that it might be time for you to take a break. The third sign is increased irritability, frustration, or emotional reactivity in response to spiritual teachings or community interactions. I've had the experience before where I was part of a community, and I noticed that every time I was going to be around this group of people, there was nothing wrong with the group of people. Everybody was really loving. Everybody was really nice. It was a nice atmosphere. It was a nice environment. But I noticed that I would get irritable, and then I would come home and I would feel very drained, and I didn't feel uplifted like I once did. And that let me know. And I fought it for so long. It was so hard for me to express like, hey, I need to step away, I need to take a break, which is totally fine. It is okay to have those boundaries and just let somebody know like, hey, this isn't for me right now. This just isn't resonating with me anymore. We change from moment to moment, and it's okay to change your mind about being a part of community interactions, or participating in the spiritual community. It's okay. Um, so if you're feeling irritable, frustrated, emotionally reactive, drained from interacting in a spiritual community or spiritual teachings, then yeah, take a break from that. It's totally fine. The fourth sign and symptom that it may be time to take a break from your spiritual practice is feelings of guilt, feelings of shame, or self-judgment for not meeting perceived expectations or standards in your spiritual practice. If you've set up these expectations, then you feel guilt or shame about it, it's time to take a break. Let's say that I actually experienced this when I was learning to open the Akashic Records. Man, let me take a sip of water before we get into this. When I decided I wanted to open Akashic Records and do readings for myself and for other people, it was so hard for me to find like a teacher who resonated with me. And I felt shame and I judged myself because I was like, when I read a book by Linda Howe, um, and the prayer was in there. She went over the whole process and I tried it. And I was trying to practice every day. And some days I would connect and I would have cool experiences and I would journal about it. And then other days there would be nothing. And I would feel like shame about that. And I would judge myself about like, I don't know, not being good enough or not having the ability to connect. And thankfully, I listened to myself, and instead of obsessing about not meeting my perceived expectations or standards that I set for myself in that spiritual practice, I backed away from it. I was like, oh, this isn't feeling good. This is not where I'd like to be. I took a break. I took a break for about 2 weeks. And that was what I needed to get back to it. And as soon as I came back to it, I found a course and I took it and oh my gosh, I just devoured it and it felt good again. And I was able to connect and I was having experiences again. And then it got easier and I was able to practice and create a new spiritual practice around it. So if you're feeling guilt, shame, or self judgment for not meeting perceived expectations or standards, it's time to take a break. Another symptom, number 5, is physical symptoms such as headaches, muscle tension, digestive issues. These things can all indicate stress or strain on the body. If you are forcing yourself to do something that's not making you feel great, eventually your energy, your body is going to react to that. So pay attention to physical symptoms that let you know it might be time to take a break from your spiritual practice. The 6th sign and symptom is loss of joy, inspiration, or enthusiasm for your spiritual practice. If your spiritual practices were previously sources of comfort or guidance, and now you're just not feeling it, you're not excited about it, then it's okay to take a break. Let's say you were studying tarot and then you did it for a couple of weeks and suddenly some things happen in your life. You didn't really have time to do it. You started feeling um, just not inspired to do it anymore. Or maybe nothing happened in your life and you were just going about your tarot practice. And then a month or two into it, you're just like, I'm not excited about this anymore. That's okay. Take a break. You do not have to continue doing something if you're not interested in it. Pick it back up when it's time. There might be something that's happening in your energy field within you that you need to resolve to move forward. It could be anything. So listen to yourself and take all of these signs and symptoms. They're just feedback, they're data, they are information that your body is giving you, letting you know that there's something you need to pay attention to. The 7th sign or symptom is struggling to find meaning, purpose, or connection in your spiritual journey despite continued effort and dedication. If you're, I hit my elbow. Just trying to get comfortable. I'm like beating myself up. Oh gosh. If you're struggling to find meaning or purpose or connection, then in your spiritual journey, despite the fact that you're putting in effort and you're dedicated to it, take a break. It's time to take a break. The struggle is not necessary. If you're just like, what does this mean? Why am I even doing this? Then no, don't do it. If you're having a hard time connecting, don't force yourself. Just rest. Let it be. You will be able to connect when you're ready, and it's okay. And that looks different for everyone. So if you're feeling like you're feeling that struggle to find meaning, purpose, or connection, and you keep trying and you're dedicated, just take that break. It's okay. The 8th sign and symptom that it might be time to take a break from your spiritual practice is increased resistance or avoidance of spiritual practices, rituals, or community gatherings that were once meaningful or fulfilling. And this is really similar to the one that I mentioned earlier about increased irritability or frustration in reaction to like spiritual community interaction or spiritual teachings. If you're feeling increased resistance or avoidance of spiritual practices, rituals, community gatherings, definitely a sign. That's your body letting you know. That's your body, your spirit letting you know, like, hey, you need a break from this. There's something that's not resonating anymore. And I needed another sip of water. Oh my gosh, it's so weird because the more that resistance increases, the more you might feel inclined to fight it. It took me months to make the decision to step away from the community that I was in. I had so many emotions around it. I felt like I was abandoning them. I felt guilty. But I felt so much resistance every time I was supposed to show up to a workshop or a class or a gathering. I just wasn't excited about it and I wanted to avoid it. I wouldn't respond until the last minute. I I would just dread the whole drive there. And it was all letting me know that I needed to take a break from that spiritual practice. And oh, I felt so bad doing it. I couldn't, it took me so long. And then I finally, after months of feeling like that, I finally had the self-awareness and confidence to pay attention and do what I needed to do for me. And it was fine. Nobody died. The world did not implode. The sky didn't fall. I had created this belief that it wasn't okay. And so it wasn't. But it really was. It was just a belief that I created. Okay. The ninth the ninth sign and symptom is intuition or inner guidance, signaling a need for rest, reflection, or redirection in your spiritual path. So it's so funny because one of my spiritual practices is picking cards, like drawing some cards for myself. And I noticed that I would often get messages about resting. I noticed that whenever I would channel, my guides would let me know, like, hey, you need to rest more. Whether I was in the Akashic Records, whether I was just connecting with my guides, I continued to get that message. If I got a reading, it would come up in the reading. Like your intuition, your inner guidance will let you know, and it'll give you various signals. Oh, and that's important. That's important. My guides are letting me know right now. They're giving me the signal. Yeah, so definitely pay attention to your intuition and your inner guidance, signaling that need for rest, reflection, or redirection. They'll let you know. If you're wondering, you can ask them. Ask them for a sign that like, is it time for me to take a spiritual break? And they'll give you one. And you can ask for a very specific sign, like, hey, I want to see a peacock feather if it's time for me to take a break from my spiritual practice right now. And do not have expectations about how you're going to see the feather. Don't have expectations about what kind of feather. Like it could be a peacock, a painting of a peacock feather on the tire on the back of a Jeep that you see on the street. You know what I mean? So just be open and aware and mindful and be in the moment. The 10th sign and symptom that it may be time for you to take a break from your spiritual practice is an overall sense of disconnection, imbalance, or dissonance within yourself. Dissonance is the opposite of resonance. It does not fit. So if you're feeling that within yourself, within your relationship with spirituality, that disconnection or imbalance or dissonance, then that's a sign that it's time to take a break. All right. So tuning into our bodies and our emotions, noticing feelings of fatigue, overwhelm, or disinterest. How do we do that? How do you tune into your body? How do you notice the signs and the symptoms? How can you be more aware of the intricate, nuanced ways that your body communicates with you? So, here are some ways to do that. You can practice mindfulness. So you can set aside some time each day. You can practice meditation, or you can simply sit quietly and just observe your thoughts, observe the sensations you're feeling, observe your emotions without judgment, just watching what comes up and not analyzing it. And just pay attention to any physical sensations of tension or fatigue or discomfort that come up in your body. That's practicing mindfulness. You can also keep a journal. You can maintain a journal to kind of track your daily activities, your emotions, your energy levels. There are some really cool journals. There are some TikTok channels where people do these like in-depth journal things where they mark those things in their journal every day and they've got little check boxes and stuff. Oh my gosh. If you are a journaler and you like markers and like that kind of stuff, highly recommend. Oh, I love watching it. I want to do it, but I honestly haven't made the time to sit down and like, create my little journal with all the pages to track those things. But I love that kind of stuff. And that allows you to reflect on any patterns or trends you notice, particularly regarding feelings of fatigue, overwhelm, or disinterest in your spiritual practice. Because if you're feeling those things, they are signs that it might be time to take a break. And checking in regularly. Take regular breaks throughout the day to check in with yourself and assess how you're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. Notice subtle shifts in your energy or your mood that could indicate a need for rest or self-care. Also, just listen to your body's signals. Pay attention to changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, changes in your energy levels. Notice any signs of physical or mental fatigue that could indicate a need for rest or relaxation. Um, Another way to tune into your body and your emotions and notice feelings of fatigue, overwhelm, or disinterest, is to practice self-compassion. Be gentle and compassionate with yourself. As you navigate your feelings of fatigue, overwhelm, and disinterest, it's really important to be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel fatigue. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel disinterested. Don't judge yourself for it. Don't add to it. Have compassion. Come from a place of love. Come into your heart. Think about gratitude. Think about joy. Watch movies or that make you laugh. Look up YouTube clips of like cute cats or puppies. Do something that makes you feel good. Um, and acknowledge that it's okay to take breaks and prioritize self-care, even if it means stepping away from your spiritual practice temporarily. That's okay. Another way that you can kind of check in with yourself is to set boundaries. Establish healthy boundaries around your time, around your energy, and your commitments. This will help you to prevent burnout and overwhelm. Learn to say no to activities or obligations that drain your energy and prioritize the things that nourish you and replenish you. If you don't feel like hanging out with that friend you said you're going to hang out with, cancel it. You do not have to put yourself in a position to do something that makes you uncomfortable or that's not going to bring you joy, especially if you're feeling fatigue, overwhelm, disinterest. If you're feeling that disinterest, you're feeling it for a reason. Do not force yourself to push through that for the sake of somebody's feelings or for the sake of somebody else's health. Your health and your feelings are also really important. And I'm not saying like, oh, be mean, be rude, just ghost the person. It's totally fine to express like, hey, I'm actually not feeling great. I really need to do some self-care, to take some time to myself. Can we hang out at another time? Like you can say it in a really nice, compassionate, kind way and handle the situation sensitively, but just acknowledge when you're feeling that way. And then you can also seek support, reach out to friends, family members, reach out to spiritual mentors or other members of your communities that you're part of and ask them for support or guidance, or if they could just relate to how you're feeling. Especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure about how to navigate a period of rest or disinterest in your spiritual practice, being able to share your experiences with others who can relate and just being able to share your experiences can provide validation and perspective. So, embracing breaks mindfully. I honestly wanted to make this a shorter episode, and it's probably going to be about an hour, which is interesting. I can talk, I'll tell you right now. So, make sure that you're embracing your breaks mindfully. If you are going to take a break from your spiritual practice, here are some tips and strategies for being able to take a break and do it in a mindful, intentional way. So, set an intention for why you're taking the break and what you're hoping to gain from taking a break. By the way, I just want to preface this by saying if you want to take a break from your spiritual practice, just take a break. You don't have to do any of this stuff. Man, but if you do like to have that structure, then set some intentions, communicate boundaries. You can let your spiritual community know you're taking a step back. Let them know you're taking a break and you won't be, participating for a while. If you feel like that's right for you, you don't even have to let anybody know. You can just be like, hey, I'm not showing up. You don't have to explain yourself. You can also create a ritual, develop a simple ritual to mark the beginning and end of a break from spiritual practice. So that can be like lighting a candle while you journal and then blowing the candle out, or spending some time in nature. Rituals can really help you to create a sense of ceremony and mindfulness around your break. You can also engage in self-care by focusing on activities that replenish your energy, that bring you joy. And that could be spending time with loved ones, doing hobbies, or practicing relaxation techniques, like yoga and meditation. Practicing mindfulness, staying present can also be helpful during this time, as well as reflecting and journaling. And remember to set realistic expectations. Focus on being present, enjoy the journey. Don't create all of these rules that add more pressure. Like you're taking a break, take your break. When it's time to get back to it, we'll talk about how to know it's time to get back to it. Releasing guilt or judgment and giving yourself permission to rest and recharge is so crucial for fostering self-compassion and well-being during a break from your spiritual practice. And being able to release that guilt or judgment and giving yourself permission promotes self-compassion. It reduces stress and pressure. It encourages authenticity, and it enhances your self-worth. So, how do you know when it's time to return to your spiritual practice? Here are some ways to do that. Tips for recognizing when it's time to reconnect with your spiritual practice. And we're going to go over about 7 of them. So, inner alignment is the first one. Notice if you feel this sense of like alignment and resonance when you think about returning to that spiritual practice. Trust your intuition, listen to the subtle nudges, and that'll be your sign, that inner knowing. If you have renewed interest, just pay attention to like any new interest or refreshed curiosity that you may feel towards spiritual topics, practices, or teachings. If you're suddenly getting excited about it again, if you notice you find yourself drawn to activities or resources that previously inspired you or nourished that spiritual part of yourself, then that's a sign that you can get back to your spiritual practices. When you're getting excited about it again and you're looking forward to it and you feel inspired. Feeling centered is another way you can tell. So reflect on whether or not you feel centered and grounded and emotionally stable. Returning to your spiritual practice may help you reconnect with your inner peace and clarity and sense of purpose. So maybe you just need a little more stability and grounding. And seeking support. If you find yourself seeking support or guidance from spiritual mentors, maybe you're suddenly wanting to get readings, or you're looking for a mentor, a spiritual teacher, or you really want to connect with community members again. These can be signs that you're ready to re-engage with your spiritual practice. And you can always reach out to trusted people, trusted friends, trusted mentor for encouragement and inspiration. Life events or challenges are another way that you can know it's time to return to your spiritual practice. So pay attention to significant life events or challenges that prompt you to seek spiritual guidance or support. These experiences may serve as catalysts as to get you started for reevaluating your spiritual path and recommitting to your practices that nourish your soul. And inner promptings. So again, that inner wisdom. Notice if you receive any like inner promptings, synchronicities, or signs that point you toward returning to your spiritual practice. These subtle messages can come through dreams, your intuition, or unexpected encounters that resonate with your spiritual beliefs or values. An example of that for me would be taking that time to go out in nature and then connecting with one of my spiritual guides on a way deeper level than I've connected in a while. And it was beautiful. Feeling disconnected is another way to notice it's time to get back to your spiritual practice. So if you notice feelings of disconnection, emptiness, or stagnation in your life, then that could be a sign that you're craving deeper spiritual connection and meaning. So returning to your spiritual practice can help you to rekindle that sense of connection and purpose. Now, how do you know when it's time to explore new avenues for spiritual growth? So sometimes you want to get back to your spiritual practice, but you don't want to get back to the same stuff. You want to do new stuff. You want to explore. So knowing when it's time to explore new avenues for spiritual growth involves, again, tuning into that inner guidance, listening to your intuition, recognizing patterns in your spiritual journey, and staying open to new possibilities. So here's some indicators that it could be time to explore some new paths, some new spiritual practices, some new modalities. If you're feeling stuck or stagnant and you're not making progress, if you have curiosity or you want to explore different spiritual traditions, if you're feeling curious and like Dora the Explorer, then yeah, explore new paths. It's totally fine. If you're seeking a deeper connection, you find yourself craving this deeper connection with yourself or others or the divine, that could be a sign you're ready for new avenues. Facing challenges or transitions can also be a sign. The challenges, significant life events, or transitions like the death of a loved one or maybe changing a career, these can all prompt you to seek new sources of support or guidance or inspiration on your spiritual journey. So you can look at these things as opportunities for growth and exploration that can lead to profound shifts in your perspective and understanding. Feeling disconnected or disenchanted is another sign that you might want to explore a different path. My cat's over here doing parkour, so excuse that interruption. Inner promptings or intuition, again, listen to how you're feeling, listen to your intuition, gut feelings that may guide you toward new avenues. Pay attention to just kind of like what pops up. Sometimes things will just pop up on my radar that I've never even considered. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm super interested. I want to explore this rabbit hole. Seeking expansion of and evolution is another indicator that it might be time to explore a new or different spiritual practice or spiritual path. So if you feel called to expand your understanding, expand your experience or perspective on spirituality, then that could be an indication that it's time for you to explore a new avenue of growth and embrace opportunities for learning and experimenting and self-discovery that challenge and stretch your boundaries, your spiritual boundaries, and um, perpetuate open-mindedness. Feeling called to serve is another way that you can know that it might be time to explore different spiritual avenues. So if you feel a deep sense of purpose or a calling to serve others, to be of service or contribute to the greater good, then exploring spiritual practices or paths that align with that desire to make a positive impact in the world can be so good for you. And that's a sign that maybe it is time for you to explore something different, to develop a new skill or to learn something different, to explore, consider new modalities that empower you to share your gifts, your wisdom, and your love with others. An example of this would be I was searching for purpose and I wanted a spiritual mentor, and this is a while ago, and I stumbled onto this community, and part of being a part of this community was getting certified in Reiki. And I had no interest in Reiki and getting certified in it, but it was just kind of part of the program. And so I was like, okay, sure. I knew I wanted to serve. I knew I wanted to eventually do readings for people. I loved tapping into my intuition. I wanted to help other people. And through getting certified in Reiki, I developed a love for Reiki. I learned so much about energy healing, and it led me down all of these other paths. It was a catalyst. Reiki, something I was not interested in at all, was a new modality, a new path that I'd never considered, and it led me to so many other things. So try to keep an open mind and listen to your intuition, follow your inspiration. So to sum all this up, embrace the ebb and flow of your spiritual practice and know that it's okay to take breaks and to make adjustments along the way. If you're going to take a break, don't feel guilty about it. Enjoy your time, rest, relax, get rejuvenated, and remember, it's all about living your best life. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I always appreciate it. Please reach out and share your experiences or questions related to taking breaks from spiritual practices. You can leave comments on the podcast. You can go on social media. You can send me a DM. You can leave comments on YouTube. There's so many ways you can reach out. I think you can still leave voice messages on Spotify. I think it's through the Podcasters app, or you can just go to the website. But yeah, please reach out if you got something out of this podcast, if you learned something new, if you want to share one of your experiences. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I wish you all the highest vibration of love and light on your journeys and in your lives. I love you so much. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care, and I will see you soon.